It is fantastic to see all of you. It's a beautiful full room on a lovely spring day. Thank you for coming and joining us for this Dunkerley Dialogue. My name's Ian Barry. I'm the director of the museum, and I had the very wonderful privilege of curating this show with Kathy Butterly. Welcome, Kathy Butterly.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is, for those of you who are regulars with us, this is our series called Dunkerley Dialogues. We first give our great thanks to Michele Dunkerley for sponsoring this conversation series, which has now been going on for the entire life of the museum. So thank you, Michele. It's in these conversations that we bring together our faculty in conversation with artists that are showing at the museum. And we're very pleased to have Matt Wilt here, artist and our ceramicist in the studio art department.
Thank you.
And Elena Sisto, fantastic painter and essayist for our forthcoming catalog on Kathy's work. Thank you, all three of you, for being here. There's many people in this room who had, who had a hand in helping us with this exhibition. But I want to, in particular, cite two, and that is Jim and Jane Cohan, who are here right up front. Welcome. They have been stewarding Kathy's work through some magnificent exhibitions at their gallery, including one that just closed about a month ago, which was a real highlight. And also Elizabeth Harvey Levine is here. Elizabeth Levine, who is a long-time, deep and committed supporter of Kathy, a lender to the exhibition, and has gifted several works to the Tang's collection. So thank you very, very much. And then a few just thanks in the room from the Tang. Thank you so much, Tom Yoshikami and Kelly Ward, for organizing this, and especially Izzy DeSantis. There she is, Izzy, who has been very hard at work, especially this week, putting the finishing edits on our big book on Kathy Butterly, which is coming out very soon. So thank you so much, Izzy, for your organization. So, a couple notes of things to know about. Rebecca and Jill and I were on the radio this morning, connecting all of our three exhibitions. There are, for those of you that don't know, that you are here at the confluence of three amazing ceramics exhibitions. And for the next week, starting on Saturday, for the next week forward, you can see all three in one visit. And so not only do we have this amazing survey, 30 years of Kathy Butterly's work here at the museum, but Matt curated an exhibition at the Schick Gallery. If you haven't been, it's right across the green, and it's open late tonight. And you can see an exhibition he might mention later on,
Sure.
Of a very diverse and interesting cross-section of contemporary ceramics. And then on Saturday, just north of us at the Hyde Collection, opens Toshiko Takiezu, organized and curated by Jill Kovacic right there, our own, Skidmore's own Jill Kovacic. And we are very proud lenders to that exhibition. Encourage everybody to go on Saturday and see that. That will be up until June. So, without further ado, the bios of our three panelists are in your program. So check them out. They have amazing histories and careers. But they're going to jump right into conversation. There'll be some moment when you deem it right to ask the audience to join in, and so save some questions for them, and thanks again for being here.
I just want to make sure people can hear okay.
Good. Thank you, Ian, for having the three of us here together. Kathy, thank you for coming, and Elena as well. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. I was going to try to break the ice and just say maybe we would start with some karaoke, but my voice a little bit hoarse. I can't really pull off any karaoke at the moment. But the one of the things that we were talking about in the lead up to this, as we were sitting up here waiting to begin, was a reference to a little bit about talking about students and trajectory going from wherever it is that you grew up and landing, finding yourself in college and studying at an art school or a liberal arts college for that matter. And some of those choices along the way that kind of lead you to where you ultimately get to in adulthood and professional life and things like that. And one of the crossover connections that Kathy and I have is that we both have a history in Philadelphia, and we have a history in different ways at Moore College of Art and Design in Philadelphia, the only remaining all-women's art school in the country. And so one of the things that I've been really curious about, and I've been kind of holding off on asking Kathy these questions until this moment, is that so many of us have these different kind of choices and decisions as we leave home and leave high school and things like this. So kind of my lead off, if you will, is that you're growing up in New Jersey, and I'm curious to know how you find Moore College of Art and Design, this small all women's art college in Philadelphia, how you make that choice. So part of my question is like, you were interested in art at that point? Were you already interested in clay as a material at that point? And then the broader question then becomes, okay, so you get this degree at Moore College of Art and Design, and then eventually, and I don't know the timeline exactly, but eventually you make this cross-continental jump from Philadelphia to University of California at Davis, where Robert Arneson was on faculty at the time. And most of you know Arneson's work, I assume. Out in the lobby, there's a bronze stack of totem-like of Arneson's heads. So he's a major pivotal figure in ceramics. So that's a long-winded way of saying, like, these decisions, high school, Kathy, Moore College of Art and Design, and then how does that land you eventually in California and at UC Davis?
Mm-hmm. So I grew up in New Jersey, and I actually didn't know that you could be an artist. I went first to find Moore College of Art. I thought originally I wanted to be an architect, but I took some architecture classes in high school, and I was the only girl in the class, and I didn't like it. So I decided, I'm going to be an interior designer. So when there were the college fairs, Moore came to our school, and I met them there, and put a little check, because I was like, all right, I'm interested in the school. So I went to a few colleges to check out their interior design departments.
Gotcha.
And when I went to Moore, I went there because I felt like they wanted me.
Mm-hmm.
And so my intuition said, this is the place for you. Like, I think that's something about myself that I go by intuition with pretty much all the choices in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And, it served me pretty well.
How did your parents react to the idea of, like, okay, I want to go 2 hours away, Philadelphia, big city, all women's art college? How was that received by your family?
It was interesting because my parents, I'm the first person in all of my huge family who's ever gone to college.
Okay.
And then I went to Moore College, and thinking I was going to be an interior designer. And then after I was there for a few weeks, I'm like, wait a minute, you're allowed to be an artist? And so I'm like, oh, well, I want to paint. Because I had been painting my whole life. Like I took painting lessons starting in second grade. Like, my mom took me to, because my kindergarten teacher told her I was very creative. So my mom, she said, you got to get her art lessons. So she did. So, but I thought that was, something on the side. I didn't know. I wasn't really, I didn't have, I didn't come from an art family. So I didn't know. I thought you had to have a job. So I went to more, thinking I was going to go into interior design, saw people painting and sculpting. I'm like, well, I want to do that. So then I just, switched over to being a painting major.
Okay.
So that's really how I got into understanding that I could be an artist.
No clay experience at all at that point?
No,
Okay.
no. And then painting, it wasn't satisfying me the way that I felt I needed more. So then I took jewelry classes. I took sculpture. Like I was welding. I was making these big things. I was trying many different materials. And then I took a ceramic class so I can make a container to hold my oil painting brushes.
Okay.
And everything, it was practical because that's what I thought ceramics was. I thought it was about making things that had could function to hold my oil painting brushes. And at the time also, it was different than it is now, like the art world accepting ceramics, especially on the East Coast, I would say. So it was kind of interesting because in my head, when I was like, okay, I'm gonna be a painting major. I'm gonna be a painter, and I was thinking of all my options for like, okay, well, there's well, the one thing people said is if you're going to be a painter, if you're going to be a fine artist, you have to learn how to waitress. Because that's how you're going to survive. So I did. I learned how to waitress, and I did have to use that for many years of my life. But so I went from, being in the painting department, and then met Viola Fry
Okay.
when I was at Moore. She came after she had her solo exhibition at the Whitney Museum. Some of the work came to the Moore College of Art Gallery, which was then run by oh my goodness, no, Elsa Longhauser Weiner? No, Elsa Weiner Longhauser.
Yeah.
Anyway, amazing curator at Moore College of Art who brought in Ken Price's work and Ron Nagel, and she brought Viola.
Wow.
So when Viola came to Moore College of Art, she had an exhibition of some of the works that were at the Whitney. And I saw her work, I met her, I saw her give a demonstration. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it, because it combined painting and sculpture and
This
had
is
meaning.
Late 80s-ish, in that range?
When she came, I think it was like 1980.
That's okay.
3 or 4 when she came to
Okay,
Moore,
okay.
but like my whole life changed
But
because of her.
and it was painting and meaning and form
'Cause
all together.
She studied painting also, and she had paintings on the wall, and then she had these monumental sculptures that for me were very political. And, a big businessman staring down at you, and I was like, I was rocked. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to make things that have meaning. So she changed my life. And what else am I going to say about all right, basically, I worked in clay, finished up at Moore, and then I took 2 years off, basically, between grad school and undergrad, because I just really I've been in school my whole life, and I was like, all right, I want to see what it's like to really, live in the real world. And it wasn't very good.
That's the table waiting.
I was such a terrible waitress. I was waiting tables, and I also worked in a factory building in Philadelphia, like way far out in Philadelphia, and I basically had to climb up 6 flights of stairs to the top. I felt like Rapunzel in the castle. I was all alone making templates for brass lamps.
Okay.
And I was terrible at it, and I hated it. And so I also, during that time, I traveled to Southeast Asia.
Okay.
I went backpacking for a few months, and that changed my world. Going out into the world changed my world. So I realized I need to go to grad school. And I was really hungry for it. And so it was Jack Thompson and Ken Vavrick at Moore College of Art suggested that I look, well, Jack said, you should go hang out with Bob Arneson. And I'm like, okay. So I applied to Davis, and I got in, and I went to California. And the reason I was attracted to California is because they were making works out of clay that were art
Yeah,
to
yeah.
me, and were colorful and had a lot of political meaning and had meaning. And I wanted to change my life. You know, I'd already been on the East Coast, and
Yeah.
I found everything was kind of brown. And
Right.
you know, and I was like, I don't like brown, so I went to California.
I just want to interject there too. Like we've been talking a lot about this in class, the revolution that occurred in California in the 60s and 70s in clay. People like you're talking about, Viola Fry and Robert Arneson, Peter Volkus, obviously, Betty Woodman, although she wasn't in California, but her use of color and things like
Right.
that were so radically different than what was happening on the East Coast at that time, like Alfred and things like that.
Yeah.
That I don't, all these years later, it seems to show through in your work. Like that's somebody that has spent some time in California. I mean, and part of it is that color, that dreariness versus that vibrancy of like East Coast versus West Coast.
Totally.
So it was on Jack Thompson's suggestion, really, go apply to UC Davis, and there happens to be this monumental figure there,
Yeah.
no pun intended, but of Robert Arneson, and so that I just think for a young person, that's an incredibly courageous thing to do, to go to graduate school on the other side of the continent. You're not going home to do your laundry. You know, you're not going home to, stay for a weekend. It's like I'm going for a couple years and, probably won't be back for some time. And that whole leap that you took, kind of like a leap of faith in a lot of ways for your next step, and how that experience was going to a whole new environment.
I think that's I've been, since I have this show and it's like 35 years of work, I've been looking back and thinking, and I think um, I think that I don't see roadblocks.
Hmm.
I think I just go for it. I think I'm just like, I want to do that, so I go do it. So going to California was like, oh, it's just, I want to go to California. It's bright and sunny. Why wouldn't I want to be there? So I went to California, and it was bright and sunny. It was awesome.
Yeah, yeah. And anything, I mean, I have other things I want to hand off here too, but anything like first impressions of like starting there, let's say, of meeting Robert Arneson and beginning that MFA program, and any recollections of that?
Well, I think this goes into like a little bit of heaviness,
Okay.
but is also the basis for who I am and what I do. Is 3 days after I moved out to California, my boyfriend of 5.5 years, who I love dearly, killed himself. So I entered grad school really wounded.
Sure.
And I didn't tell anybody because I didn't want anybody to treat me differently or feel sorry for me. So the good thing about UC Davis is they let me have my studio like a month before the school started.
Mm-hmm.
So I just went in there and I worked.
Mm-hmm.
I just worked and worked and worked. So at UC Davis, the first year, I had been making large works a la Viola Fry,
Right.
but also very influenced by my painting hero at the time was Marston Hartley.
Uh-huh.
So very influenced by Marston Hartley, thinking about like the scale of Viola, and the outside of my works were elaborately carved, and they were kind of like illustrating my feelings and my thoughts. And because of the intense experience I had gone through pretty privately, I started making these forms that were just for myself. And they were about this large, and they were small, heartfelt, heartbroken pieces, and they were almost the size of my heart. And they were figurative in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And so the first one I made had a slash across the chest, and it's called Wounded Pitcher, and that was me.
Oh.
And Bob came into my studio, and I always say this is like, we had studios with a door that locked,
Mm-hmm.
but he knew where everything was in my studio. So he was in there peeping around at other times. But he came right in, and I had all these big pieces that I was working on. And he went right over and found this piece, and he's just like, "What's this?" I'm like, "You're not supposed to see that, and it's private." And he's like, "This is really powerful." And so I had to think. I had time to. I take a long time to think and develop, and to really have to understand what I'm getting into when I'm going to make something. And I realized he's right. Like I am making these pieces that are very powerful and heartfelt and strong, and is not illustrating an idea. It is the idea. It literally is the heart that was ripped out of me, and I'm presenting it. So that's how I started working small, and that's how California saved me. I mean, it really was like a really important place for me to develop what I do now. So it really started from tragedy.
Yeah.
But also through hard things, I also think that I can express it well with humor. So when you look at my work, there is a lightness to a lot of them and humor, because that is sometimes how you express intensity.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a great story there, and it's also just interesting from a ceramic point of view. You're talking about these two kind of iconic figures, Viola Fry and Robert Arneson, massive, huge scale things, and he immediately gravitates to the smallest object in your studio at that time.
He had a really good bullshit detector.
Yeah.
And I think I do too. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a cool story.
Yeah.
So I don't want to hog the conversation. I'm sorry that we've been going, but I love that. I love the background information.
It's important.
Yeah.
What you were saying about using humor, I think, is interesting. It reminds me of Guston, although he's not actually humorous, but he uses the language of cartooning,
Yeah.
so that it's like you disarm the viewer by making them think that it's funny and light, but then you can get directly into something that's quite deep, and then come back very quickly. But I wanted to ask you, I'm redoing everything now that we're talking, but, I also just wanted to ask one thing. How many people are students here? Okay, great. And I just want to thank Ian for inviting me to do this, and of course, Kathy. And I just want to say it's been an incredible, I'm not using the word journey. I hate that word.
I know, I hate that word too. There's got to be a better word for
Journey and vessel. No. Anyway, I think the experience of, getting to know your work as well as I have, and I've written about Kathy before, has been an amazing experience for me as an artist, as well as, just an appreciator of you, in terms of your trust in your process and your ability to stay in the process without judging it, and just get everything out of the way to allow yourself that freedom. And I was wondering if you could, well, we've talked a lot about how mistakes are very important in your work, and that really there is no such thing as a mistake in a way, which is something Picasso said a lot. But so my question is, mistakes have a heightened role in your work. Could you explain how you use them as doors instead of walls? And how you can tell the difference between a possibly productive mistake or a non-productive mistake?
Yeah. So I think I'll start it by talking about like the material, clay and glaze. Like there's a history to it, right? And you're supposed to be doing things a certain way, and I don't get that. I don't get that I'm supposed to do it a certain way. And I understand like I need to learn how to do things, but I learn how to do them so that I can learn how to not do them. I can make my own way of making something, and through the way of making something, it's just so by intuition. It's like I need something on the top of a piece to be airy and light. How do you do that out of clay? Well, you have to figure out how to create a new technique for yourself. So by creating new techniques, things fail all the time, and that's how I learn. So I think like I'm never bored, because even though I'm only working with a very limited scale, And I've now limited my work to the idea of working with a circle and a square. And how do you get meaning and feeling out of a circle and a square? I've really like kind of pared things down. So by paring things down and only using clay and glaze, I have to push the material further and further. And so I'm breaking my works all the time while I'm making them, and I'm making big holes in them. And then either I like the hole or I have to repair the hole. And as I'm like repairing a hole, I might like develop a new technique for something. So I feel like I just keep learning things by failing, by just like saying, well, why can't I do that? Like I can do that. I can fire a piece. Like there's a piece I fired 42 times. Like, and I think it has to do with like, I don't know what I'm after. I don't do sketches of my work. I have no foresight into what it's going to be about or look like, because what I'm interested in is living the piece, like living and having this experience with it. Like, I don't want to control it and I don't want it to control me. And then I want it to reflect what's going on in the world, in my world right now. So I think that like, I think what I'm trying to do, like it was in the conversation with Ian Barry, is I think I'm really just like putting being human on a pedestal. And with all of our, all of our issues,
Yeah.
like proud and awkward, like this is like, I'm just celebrating being human with all our frailties and, strengths. But I think that's what I'm interested in. And there's a lot of failure. I love failure. I don't want to fail all the time, but that's how I learn, because I really feel like I'm trying to use this material that's very historic and just kind of push it a little bit further.
Dorothy Allison, do you know who she is? She wrote a book called Bastard Out of Carolina, and she writes about how she only does she does her best work when she's afraid. Like there's an edge inside of her where she's either terrified about what she's revealing or terrified that she's not equal to, skill-wise to her subject. Do you feel like, I have two questions about this, but do you feel frightened a lot when you're working?
No,
So it's just a joyful thing.
no.
It's not joyful either. What is it? Is it just?
It's a little bit of everything. Like, I just finished, God, I swear I keep telling myself I'm not going to do it anymore. But I was just carving beads around a piece and it took me like 3 weeks. And it's only one, and I'm going to cover them up probably. But I don't know. So what was the question again?
Fear.
Fear. I mean, like
Yeah, make
being
it
on the
work.
edge of the unknown.
No, I love it. I don't want, I don't want to make, I don't want, like my bullshit detector goes off if I start making something that seems familiar. Like what happens, like I just finished a body of work that was at the James Cohan Gallery. And, so I now I'm in this stage where I'm like, I want to start making work again. So I'm making work, and where do I start? I kind of start where I ended, and then I'm like, this I've been here.
Yeah.
So how do I find that how do I find a place where like I don't feel like I'm a fraud? Like I don't want to repeat myself. And I feel like, when I look at the body of work that's out in the gallery, that's my life out there, like 35 years of making work. And the first 15 were from the same shape, which was a pint glass. I went to like West Elm or Crate and Barrel and I bought a pint glass. And for 15 years, I was using the same shape, a pint glass shape, to find meaning from something that was devoid of meaning, and to try to put a little bit of humanity in it, or my expression of what's happening in my life at the time. So I'm just like always trying to, through limited confines, find infinity.
Yeah. Yeah. What was it? You talk about wonder a lot in your work, and I'm wondering if you could talk about your experiences in nature in making your sculpture and why wonder is so important, which I think you may have just answered part of that question already.
I think I can further it a little bit by describing this past summer, which was like life-changing for me. So I spend now about 5 months out of the year up in Maine in nature, and I have a beautiful studio up in Maine, and it's kind of it's a quiet life there, which I really like love because I can really get into my head and there's not a lot of distractions from, New York City and the big world. And anyway, I last summer I decided I actually had a clear plan for my work, which I usually just kind of work intuitively and go with the flow. But it was very clear, like, I really want to go towards monochromatic works, and I really am just working with a circle and a square. And I don't want any appendages on the work. I want the works to have the same, like, power, but by taking away a lot of extras from it. So I was really carving things down to their essence. And I just really got there. And it had to do with, I don't know, I got to this place where it sounds strange, but like equal balance with myself and nature in a way, which is called grace. And I felt like I was living poetry. I was alone for a month and a half because my husband had to go, Tom Burkhart, amazing painter, had to go back down to New York to teach so we can have health insurance. So, I mean, he loves students too, he loves teaching. I don't, but honestly, it's a draw. But anyway, so I was alone for a month and a half, and I just I felt like I was living poetry. I felt like I was so aware of everything that was going on before me in terms of like nature. Like I would take my morning walk and a leaf would fall and I would just watch the leaf and I could hear the leaf and I felt like I was really in tune with simplicity and I became quite aware of. I think I've been searching for beauty. Like I've been for years. I was saying to myself, like, I really wish I could make things that are beautiful, but how can I in a world that is just like falling apart and like full of pollution and whatever? And so this goes on to a trip that I went to India a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I was in Mumbai, and I noticed that the sky, when the sun was setting, it was the most amazing lilac, burning lilac, and it was gorgeous. And I realized that the sky was that color because there was so much pollution in the air. And so the sunset, the sun was reflecting on the particles, making the most spectacular color. And it was because there was a lot of construction going on in Bombay at the time, and also the air was stagnant, it wasn't moving, it was very hot and humid. And it was spectacular and beautiful, but horrific because it's from pollution. And so I found a way of finding the beauty that we're living in now, because I have to find beauty. And so the other beauty that I have is in my garden in Maine. I grow dahlias. So the petals are, I call them color collectors. So when the light, when the sun hits the petals, they're full of water just naturally within their, like we're full of blood, they're full of water, and they glow like glaze. So I'm trying to find beauty in places of nature. And some of our nature is industrial now, but it also, like going back to like California, like the fires that were happening in LA, the skies were the most beautiful red I've ever seen, and yet it was created by fire and environmental concerns. So I think that like I'm balancing this kind of beautiful rhythm that I found in Maine last summer of finding poetry in strange places, finding poetry and beauty in pollution, because we have to, right? It's like if we're living, or I have to. I don't want to speak for everybody, but there's beauty everywhere. You just have to be open to the beauty that we have now.
Do we have to find beauty? Because beauty has been something that's been sort of a very unpopular idea at least in the art world for many years now.
Beauty's back. It's
Did you
back.
have a resistance to it?
If
did
there's
take you a while
resistance
to-
to it, I don't care because
Yeah.
that's what I need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, did you become conscious of that it was okay to go after beauty full force, or
I think I was desperate for finding beauty. I was like,
make a beauty?
oh, I want to find beauty. And if I have to find beauty in pollution, that's okay. Yeah.
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 When you're working, I know when I'm working really well, I find that every brush stroke I make or form I make, I hear a sound inside of me that seems to come from my solar plexus. Do you have anything like that?
I don't know if it's that deep for me, but I can like
It could be from here.
when I'm listening to music or the radio, like I go back to the piece. I know exactly what I was listening to at this one section. I know what I was listening to when I like put that brushstroke down. And the other thing is that I also I don't know if I was talking to Ian about this or maybe to EJ Hauser. I was talking about like I can hear the pieces. So like especially with the monochromatic works that I'm making. I need to know how much glaze I'm adding, and so I can hear it. So I can hear, I can take a little pin and tap the piece, and I know if, oh, this area doesn't have enough glaze, and oh, this has the right amount, but I hear it. We use all our senses. Artists, we use all of our senses.
Yeah.
I don't taste my work. That would be really toxic. I don't want to do that, but don't use
Be in
that.
unexpected places.
Yeah.
I want to jump in for just a minute because you touched a little bit on Elena's question about fear, and I think that to me also invokes risk in processes like ceramics. You deal with a lot of like firing and melting and things happening. Talk about it in class all the time about there's so many pitfalls built into ceramics, so many things that can go wrong, oftentimes do go wrong.
Yeah.
And when I think part of my feeling is that when you work at something long enough, you describe the process as not being fearful. I think there's also perhaps maybe you could clarify is that there's a knowledge base that you accrue over time and accumulate over time, and I associate this like with the X Games with BMX bike riders who learn how to hit that half pipe and flip in the air. And there's a knowledge base that's there from countless hours of working, practicing, failures, taking risks, having those pitfalls and climbing back out of them again. I think it takes a special personality type to embrace the process of ceramics in particular, because there's so much failure kind of baked into it, built into it. And so like getting back to the risk and coming back to that, you've been doing it for a good long time.
Over 40 years, yeah.
You've got a lot of mileage on process and technique and so forth. And so you've gotten to that point where you can flip the bicycle backwards and that you have that. And so the idea of risk, David Pye talks about the craft of risk versus the craft of certainty. And so are there ways that you purposefully invite the craft of risk into it? Like, so for example, would you take something and purposefully angle it in the kiln if you wanted to encourage a lean that was going to happen a certain way? Are there things that you do to like tempt risk or tempt fate in any ways in the process?
Not in the way that you're talking about, but I might like overfire something on purpose.
Right.
But I don't, I just put it in the kiln and it comes out and then I deal with it. So, and something you said made me think of something is that I think there's in terms of like developing skill and knowledge, is that I think that there's a difference between being taught something and learning something. Like I was taught triaxial blends.
So you were
You know
taught
what? Yeah, right. So it's it's ceramics.
actually-
Testing.
It's glaze testing,
Oh.
which for me, I'm just like, I don't want to do that, So I just buy my ready-made glazes and do my own experimenting. I mean, I learned how to do triaxial blends, but
What does that mean?
It's
In a nutshell. Yeah.
it's like you want this exact thing to happen, and then you kind of take from different, like you take pacifiers and yeah, it's just like it's so not me. I'm
Pacifiers. No.
pacifiers.
Oh.
But I'm so much more Betty Croft.
I just became a grandmother.
It's like just give me the mix. So
Just give me the what?
why do I have to do all the hard work? You do that. Like I could just buy it at a store. Like all those geniuses already made the glazes. It's my job to, just like take what they made, just like a painter. I don't know too many painters who make their own paint. Like I just buy my glaze from a jar and I just like start like,
Yeah.
doing stuff.
Experimenting with it.
Yeah, but I think it has to do with I think the confidence that I do have apparently is because I've just been in my studio for 40 years, while also raising kids. But I don't fear anything because I've learned by myself, and I've made techniques up for myself because they suited something that needed to be resolved or figured out. And so, if I fail, it's because, well, I'm trying something that's never been done before. So I don't know what's going to happen. And, I think there's also this thing about sometimes when something comes out of the kiln, I might think I know what I expect, and then it comes out differently. And I'm like, well, that's really ugly. And then, but is it ugly like a baby bird that a mom would like? Like maybe there's potential there, So I'm trying to, another thing about coming back from India this last trip was something clicked in me where I just let go of a lot. And I'm just like, when I take something out of the kiln, I don't expect anything. I hope it doesn't break or, have it, whatever. But I open up the kiln now and I program my head and I try to see it with fresh eyes and I just say to myself, see me now.
Mm-hmm.
See me as I am now. Don't think how you wanted me to be, because I might be better than you thought you wanted. You wanted me to be brown, but now I'm purple. I might be better purple.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the other question I wanted to ask you is, at a certain point, you jumped up in scale.
Yeah.
The pieces that were at Cohan were bigger scale.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the relationship between the subject matter and the scale? First of all, I mean, the scale isn't that much difference, but it's significant in how it affects the piece, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like the earlier work, which is smaller, is more female, more personal,
Mm-hmm.
more about the body and its adornments, And then when you jump up scale, suddenly you get into a kind of a mythic realm,
Yeah.
right? Where you're talking about world-sized issues
Yeah.
and universal issues.
Exactly.
But, the jump in scale is like
Scale's
a couple of inches.
Yeah, I love scale.
Yeah, scale is really important, I think.
Scale's really important, and there's such a different. I think sometimes I mix or intermingle the words size and scale, and
Right.
they're very different from each other. Like these are small sized pieces, but I think they're very large scaled. So I feel like, physically they're small, but what I'm trying to do because the works are, they're really compact in a way. And I feel like what I want and what happens to me when I'm making them at that small scale, small size, is that I'm trying to make their universes to me. Because my world when I'm making them is 4 inches before my eyes. And that's where I'm sitting for 8 hours or whatever. And I'm not thinking about this world here. I'm thinking about this world. and then it's kind of a metaphysical experience of going into the pieces. So I feel like they're actually massive because my mind goes there. Like, so physically standing next to them, they're small, but my mind is infinite. And so I can get really lost in my work.
Yeah.
There's a great, I think Ken Price was quoting Joseph Cornell, but that the idea that tiny is the last refuge of the enormous. And when you know, like Ken Price's work and Ron Nagel's work, you mentioned earlier too, these tiny, like you say, tiny little universe that's in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
And can you create something that can absorb somebody and pull another human being into that small but potentially infinite space? And I think it also talks a great deal about detail. Like if tiny is the last refuge of the enormous, like what can you squeeze into that 4 by 4 inch space
Yeah.
that can capture somebody? And I think that's where like power happens, like where you can really, grab somebody and draw them in. And I think that's with your work and people like Price and Nagel, there's that great, just that visual lure that's just really magnetic. It really pulls people in.
I think something that's similar with their work and my work is like there's just so much time. We put a lot of I put a lot of time into these pieces, and I put a lot of love into them, and I have a really deep relationship with each piece, and they go slow, and I give them, it's like wine, like give them the time they need to develop. And why is there a reason to rush? Like I'm making these pieces that I'm making them until they like when people ask like when do you know they're done? They're done when they stop bugging me. Like when they stop calling me like oh like irritating me, like there's something wrong. So when they but I need to give them the time. Like I'm working on a piece in my studio now that I've been working on for a year and a half. And it's just maybe one of those pieces that's going to take like 3 or 4 years. But like why would I rush it? Like it wants to be what it wants to be. I need to get to this place where it's like we have an agreement. Like I'm not just going to finish you to finish you. I have to understand you and I have to live you.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to wait till a real idea occurs to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to work on a lot of pieces at one time.
Yeah. Oh, it's a great. So I used to work on like 5 or 6, 7 at a time, and now I work on like 20, 22.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's like, oh God, it's crazy sometimes, but it's I always have something to work on.
Yeah.
But there's just such a conversation going on, and one piece will influence the next. And like in terms of what I'm doing now with like the circle and the square, like there's the cube, and then there's like the vessel form on the top. I consider them one piece when they're done, but when I'm making them, there's the forms, and then there's the cubes, and it's like musical chairs in my studio. Like I keep moving one to the other because this one needs a smaller cube, this one needs a bigger cube. The red doesn't work on that, and then I'll start developing the cube, which sometimes now becomes more labor intensive and painterly than the top forms. So it's just so interesting. Like I'm not getting bored because I'm trying to get a square to feel.
That's interesting. So
Those are, this is another one of those kind of process questions, but those would be 20 pieces that are all in different stages of along the spectrum: wet, leather hard, dry, bisque, all of those, or are they all glazed already and all fired already?
So I'll tell you what I'm doing now in my studio. I have like 7 pieces that I've formed, and the way I talk about it is I've stretched my canvases. So I have my 7 pieces that are just white. They've been bisque fired once, and I'm going to be taking those up to Maine because I can't switch gears and work on color. It's like an orchestra.
are you ever tempted to keep it just white?
Not just raw clay. I have white pieces, and in the last show there was one all white piece. I wanted to have a whole room of white pieces, but color just keeps coming into them.
Yeah.
But I mean, white is so great because it just describes the form, and you're really relying, like, that's what happened with this last body of work also, is with these monochromatic pieces. I I have so much more, they're so much more interesting than I thought they would be, because now I have the open door of having to deal with shadows and highlights. That when I was working on the more complicated glazed pieces, you're looking at complicated glazing and the shine, but now I'm really I'm relying on the form to do a lot of the talking now. The color and the form, the simplicity of them is actually a little bit more complicated than I thought.
You know, I'm a sucker for talking about metaphysics. And I'm very involved with the metaphysical painters. I don't know if of the Italian metaphysical painters like Carat, Chirico, De Pieces. Can you talk about more what you meant about metaphysical?
I just I go to a place where I'm there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not here. I'm in. Like, all right. I don't even know if you're gonna relate to what I'm saying, but there was I had seen an exhibition of George Orr unglazed works, and I was lucky enough to be in the gallery by myself. And I got down eye level and I went into his pieces, and then I felt like I was walking through a Richard Serra sculpture. So, like, it's really trippy how if you let yourself go there, scale, like, I feel like, what is it, Star Trek? I feel like I'm being transported to other places, because if my mind can go there, it becomes a sculptural universe.
Yeah, you let you let the work have you.
Yeah,
And it takes skill on the part of the artist to actually take that responsibility.
You know, there's an amazing Vuillard show in New York right now. Just
Yeah.
whew. And I have to paraphrase it because I don't exactly remember what was said, but his paintings are just they're so intimate and amazing and so deep. And the end, there's like the statement by the gallery, and it pretty much just says something that I have to paraphrase that he said was, it's all there in the world. You just have to see it. And so, like, he sees it. The Vuillard he's painting what he sees. So it's his way of looking, and it's all there. So like my way of looking is like, getting into the George Orr sculpture and then feeling like I'm in a place, transported into a Richard Serra sculpture.
I think
So it's a shift of scale. I mean, it's a really odd idea that you're looking at something so small and it feels so big, right?
Yeah, but you just have to
Really
you have to let yourself go there.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's relying a lot on viewers too. Like you're a
Yeah.
viewer who's invested when looking at those George Orr objects, in this case those pots, and allowing yourself to engage on that level compared to what is oftentimes cited as the 10 to 15 seconds that most people will hit and move on from a piece, and to really be embracing the investigation of an object as well.
I'm not in a rush.
Right. Yeah.
What are like?
What's the
What am I
point of
gonna
being in
do?
a
Go on
rush?
Instagram and like scroll? Like this guy, like if the thing about like George Orr, like when I looked at his work, and you can go look at his work at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, you can do like I do and squat down, look down, and just like stare. And what you're gonna see is his fingerprints, and then what you're gonna see is his thought process, or I can see his thought process. And I could see, oh, he decided to go against the flow of his, turning on the wheel and go against the wheel. Like I could see what he was thinking, like, I'm going to go this way, I'm going to go that way. Oh, and he was such a faker. Like the works that look like they were, like, that he put two different clay bodies together, That was a trompe l'oeil. He faked
Wait,
it.
wait,
It was
wait, what does
painted
that
that
mean?
way. Oh, so if you take two different colors of clay and you put it on the wheel and you throw it, it'll be
The
like marbled.
marbleizing, yeah.
Oh.
He faked it. He painted it on at the end.
Right.
Wait,
Like a
what?
big
He
wheel
what?
He
figure.
faked it. He took a paintbrush and he went against the turning of the wheel. He went in the other way and he painted against the grain. And like you wouldn't know that unless you look at it. Like if somebody took the time to make it, I'm gonna like look at it.
Yeah. I think that, asking the viewer and in your work as well is inviting that investigation, but then you also, it's like a two-person dance. You have to have a viewer who's willing to invest and
Yeah.
really dig deep into some of those nooks and crannies. And that's really where I think a lot of the great experience comes from. And that if you can talk about like being absorbed into something where you start to transport into it, that's where you really are digging deep into the viewing experience as well of being an audience for an object, a painting, a sculpture, things like that. And I wanted to, I don't know, I don't have a watch or anything like that, so I want to keep moving along. But the idea of the vessel, I think you have to use the word vessel. It's the in ceramics, the tradition of pottery and the vocabulary of pottery is foot, waist, belly, shoulder, neck, lip, all of these figurative elements. You mentioned earlier, you said, we're coursing with blood. We're full of, muscles and blood and organs and viscera. And we're also the containers of our consciousness, the containers of our psyches, of our, if you want to go that direction, our souls and our spirits. All of these vessel connections with the body, our physical vessel that contains all that stuff. And I've heard you talk a little bit about this before, but in terms of the objects that you make and thinking of them as bodily, and I'm curious to know if you think of them that way, and I'm also curious to know if you think of them the architecture that we're sitting in this container of people, and do you think of them as bodily? Do you think of them as architectural bodies in a way? And how do you I guess how do you think about the connection to vessel and the history of vessel?
I'm thinking about all of that.
You know?
So I do relate the top forms to being a vessel, and I would never call them a pot. For me, the vessel, it has to do with body, and so earlier on, it was pretty clear that they were very body oriented, and then they became a little larger because I was thinking about things larger than myself. So I was starting to think about like the environment and our planet and then our universe. So I feel like now they're kind of like they're human planets. They're Mother Earth, or something. And I really think that they feel. That's what I'm after with my work. I want them to feel. I want to have them evoke some sort of connection with people that's telling something that's going on in the world right now, but I don't need to let you know exactly what it is. Like, I just want you to feel a vibe.
Yeah.
So you're sort of processing your life through your work.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think I am.
yeah. So the thing that you were describing about the pots, that goes back to ancient Greece, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Isn't that where it was
And
sort
further.
of first codified, though, in
Yeah,
ancient
yeah,
Greece?
yeah. That all of that vocabulary of the body, all of the so much of the, not all, but so much of the terminology of that goes back to the human form.
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see because you see it happen time and time again. These different cultures that evolve separate from one another, and so many of those kind of anchor points are still there, and it's an interesting history to see it happen all around the world like that, and then people up to this day, working within those frameworks, and it's we talk about it in class oftentimes, where there's functional daily use objects for like the kitchen sink and your cabinet, and then there's this other type of vessel that is much more about using that historical touchstone as a jumping off point for sculptural pursuits or pursuing sculpture, but having that at its core in a way.
And if you think about it, like a vessel form, especially the ones that are open, like within it's that space within it that is unique unto itself. Like that's a universe in itself. Like that's it kind of is like a weird thing for me to think at, and kind of reminds me of thinking about infinity in a way, like that just hurts your brain. It's like inside this vessel form, that space belongs only to that space, to that form, and there's no other place on it in the world. So it's containing this very unique environment world that I'm really into.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That whole shaping process is outlining that
That's-
physical space, that
Yeah.
lack of that negative space.
I
Yeah.
mean, you think about this, like we're here temporarily, like that like vessel form is going to be here longer, and it's holding that space that I'm not going to have.
What do you mean you're not going to have?
Well, I'll die someday, you know.
Oh.
But like it's just space. It's just this like I don't want to say sacred space, but it's like its own universe that's
Right.
there. It's kind of
It
special.
is sort of a sacred space, so, yeah.
I don't want to say it, but it is. Yeah.
And the openness, yeah, and I know that you do plenty of pieces that are also enclosed on top, and
Yeah.
and some of those decisions as well, whether to allow that kind of visual access to the interior or to separate and kind of cut that view off. I know that's a conscious decision at some point. Does it happen? Is it a byproduct of happenstance? Is it something that is predetermined from the jump?
It's intuition, and it has to do with me like processing what's going on in the world. So there's a piece in the gallery right now on the wall. It's the piece all the way back on the red wall, the only piece, and that's I made a few of these after 9/11, and I call it a heavy head.
I was just going to ask you, could you talk about the heavy head
There,
pieces?
yeah. So after I was living downtown in New York at 9/11, and two little kids, and just like it was just intense and really scary, and um, I it was weird because I was working in the studio and I was making a piece that the day before 9/11 happened, it looked like a happy piece. And the day after 9/11, it looked like I-beams to me. It just like the whole, I saw the piece in a totally different way. And the piece never changed, but I changed. And so I take a while to process things. I really do. Like it takes me like around 2 years, it seems to be, to really understand where I need to go with the work. And it was about 2 years after that I started making these forms that were kind of informed by Bernd and Hillebecker's water tower photographs, which I love. And I found a beaker, like a test tube beaker, and I just added some clay around it, and I made a mold of that form. And then I just started making these pieces that look like heavy heads to me. And so it's an enclosed form where like it went from the pieces being about like my belly in a way from having children, which you can see in that room, to being so full of fear that I couldn't even hold my head up anymore. So those are what the heavy heads are. And then in the gallery, you'll see some larger pieces that are also closed up. And I have to say that some of those larger pieces that were closed up was when Trump won the first presidential election, and I was really full of fear. So I felt like,
So you do experience fear.
but not in my work. Yeah, but oh God, of course I am so anxious about certain things, but I'm trying not to be, trying to get, my Zen grace back from last year. But I mean, it's hard not to think about.
It's good to feel fear.
Yeah. I think the other thing that we were touching on a tiny bit was this thing about getting older and having more skill, and it's really freeing because
really what?
freeing.
Oh, yeah.
So I like when
I mean, because you can do whatever you think of doing.
I can do whatever well, I always felt like
By
I
the
could
way-
do whatever I want, but I can really do whatever I
Is
want.
that one of the heavy head pieces? Or no?
Yeah, it is. So that piece, it's called Honey, and it was after 9/11, and it was started as one of the heavy heads, and it was so ugly. It was like it literally looked like a bird that just came out of an egg, like, whoa. It was ugly glaze, and I was trying to make, like, I was doing this thing where I was like, I'm gonna try to make pieces really ugly and save them. So it was really ugly, and I didn't think I could save it. And I actually put it in a box, like I put it away. And then I had this like freaky thing happen where I guess I had gotten one of the flus that affected me, and then I took antibiotics, and then I had a really bad reaction, and I ruined both of my legs for a while, and I was in 2 casts, and I was in a wheelchair, and luckily my studio is where I live, so I would just wheel myself into the studio and work, and that piece came from that. So
You didn't tell everyone where the
oh, okay. So the top part. So this is where humor. I think this is like my way of looking at things is like it came from a heavy situation. Like first of all, this ugly piece that I'm trying to save, and then like I'm in this wheelchair, and so the bottom is kind of represents that to me. But I think I am like. In the book, in our interview, Ian's like, I think you're very optimistic, and I think I am. I also think my way. It's not like. Clear optimism. It's a little complicated, but I think that the piece Honey, because I knew I'd get better. Like I'm gonna get better. I'm gonna walk, and so I just started carving, adding and carving what I was having this memory of my grandmother wearing one of those bathing caps that you blow up. And it was just like a happy memory. Actually, it was a really mixed memory, actually. But I put a happy yellow on it, and it reminded me of a flower wanting to, when the sun came on it, it would just like expand and lift up. And then each little receptacle, each little petal, I poured this translucent yellow glaze in it to hold it like honey. So that's like honey. So it's funny, it is funny, but it's a little sad.
Yeah. Yeah.
I personally feel like I could ask a whole bunch of questions about what you just described about pouring in those little droplets of clear glaze and just like kind of like tech nerd things that are just I find it fascinating. Everybody has these kind of processes that you do it a lot and you get more and more experience, and this works well and this doesn't work well. But I also I don't want to. I think we're getting the flag to maybe open it up to some people in the audience if there are questions that people would like to.
Can I just say one
Yeah,
more
please,
thing?
please.
I think at one point I realized that there was no way to make oil paintings, that every artist uses oil paint differently. If you think of Paul Klee and Rubens or something, or Titian or whatever, and I sort of feel like in something like that has a craft background, that you might be encouraged to think about it in a more kind of that there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's very interesting about your work, that you've really moved away from that and allowed yourself to get a color in your way of getting a color, instead of just or getting unity in a piece with you by your way of getting unity, rather than building the unity. I don't know how to explain this, but like, for instance, in my work, if I feel like my painting is getting too specific everywhere, I sometimes just run it under the faucet
Yeah.
and just try to get it out where it's got a history of all the different things I did, but somehow they're all on the same plane again.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you do that a lot with it. Otherwise you wouldn't have to do 40.
Yeah.
40.
I don't want to do that, man.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
something special about like you can in many ways throw the color wheel out the window too when you're talking about glaze and melting and temperature and
Oh, yeah.
atmosphere and all of that kind of alchemy.
It's
that goes into that.
chemistry.
Yeah.
It's chemistry and physics, basically. Ceramics is chemistry and physics with a little bit of creativity mixed in, right?
And a little bit of that alchemy.
Yeah.
Yeah, a pinch of that. If there are any questions, go for it.
I hope this isn't a like too granular in the like technique, but I'm just dying to know because um, you talk about carving. I have no idea where you're carving, and I see all these like tiny little necklaces and things like that, and I think I just am really dying to understand more about how some of these details come to be. Like on the honey piece, because I make things, I did make things in clay in high school, and I remember like making little noodles and then
Yeah.
putting like, is that what you're doing, or are you carving? And does it matter, or do you not want to reveal your secrets? I'm just like so obsessed with like no, I'm baffled and mystified and in awe and wonder about these pieces, and that makes me want to know some about how the hell you make them.
Yeah. I do a little bit of everything. I don't throw on the wheel. I never wanted to throw on the wheel. I actually I didn't find it enjoyable at all. And the other thing is for me, like I think it has to do the same thing I was talking about, like glazed chemistry, like making a glaze like Traxil blend is like you're after one thing. I think for me, I didn't want to, if I threw something on the wheel, I'd be after one thing, and I don't want that. So my works are cast. Initial form is cast. So earlier on, I would just find ready-mades and then make a mold and cast from that. And I thought it would make my process go quicker. It absolutely didn't, because then I really fell in love with porcelain clay. And porcelain, as you carve it thinner and thinner, it becomes translucent and just like incredible. Then I have more surface to work with. I have the interior color of the clay, then I have the clay body itself, and then I have the external, layer. So my process has really changed and developed over the years. I've changed and developed over the years, but at first I did roll coils like snakes and put it together, and then I moved on to making molds, and I'm still making molds, but I'm really having a lot of fun trying to push the form a lot more, because they are becoming more about form. Like it's more about color defining form at this point. So in terms of like the details that have happened over the years, it really was problem solving. I'm like, I need a line there. Oh, how am I going to do that? Well, I'm gonna add clay. You can't add clay to something that's been fired already. Why not? I'm not eating off it. I'm not doing it's there's no function. I'm just it's sculpture. So I'm adding it. And if it works, it works. And then it didn't work a lot, and then I figured out how to make it work. So and then the beads the beads are each hand carved in place with a pin and dental tools. It's the most laborious, backbreaking work you can imagine, and I just did it for like 3 weeks on a piece, and I want to kill myself, but I won't. And the thing is, like the beads for me, they've changed their meaning over time. So at first it was like I need a line, and I'm making a small piece, and if I'm making this piece that's sort of abstracted. So if I make something that's somewhat identifiable, it's a trick. I'm going to pull you in because you recognize it, and I'm going to pull you in, suck you into my world, and I'm going to hold you there longer. I mean, I'm not that overtly manipulative, but I've thought about it over the years why I was doing it. So it's something that's identifiable and relatable. And then as I was making these beads, which were like pearls at the time, I'm like, oh, power pearls, yeah. And and then around COVID, they turned into worry beads, prayer beads, just like trying to find just trying to heal the piece in a way. During COVID, I did make a few pieces that had so many strands of beads on them because I felt like the world was so out of control, and it was something I could control. So I go into my studio and just carve beads for for months, and it was good for me. Not my neck, but good for me. But so now I'm at a point where like I kind of don't want to do them, but I love them. They're really meditative. And so now I used to look forward to them like, oh, I have a task in the studio. Like you go to a studio and you know, it's your job to make something that's never been made before. And like, it's a little daunting, right? So if you go in and you have a task, like I'm going to carve beads today, it's an in to the studio. It's like, and then I can move on to other pieces, other that are going on in the studio. And now like, I'm like, I just had to add this strand of beads to a piece, and now I'm like, oh shit, yeah, I gotta add those beads, you know. So I don't know. I mean, when I'm doing them though, they have to be. I say the word perfect. They have to be perfect. They have to fit the form perfectly. Otherwise, they're going to feel like I just rolled things and put it on. But they need to fit the form, and they need to be convincing. Yeah, I don't. When I commit to them, I commit to making them really perfect.
I guess my question, you seem like someone who is very fluid and interested in the conversation, and you don't want to be ruled by what you're working on, nor do you want to rule it. But at some point, I guess this is more of a aesthetic/ego question. Um, do you get attached? At some point, the conversation has to stop slightly, and you think, okay, well, this one part of this piece is working. Are you able, at what point do you stop being able to kill your darlings?
I kill my darlings.
You do?
Yeah, I'm a murderer.
end.
Yeah, yeah. You have to.
Even if
'cause you
it's
have to
real
think of
pretty.
the whole of the piece. You can't think like, I love that section. The whole piece has to work. So you have to kind of give it up. It's hard.
Even after you've carved for 3 weeks, the beads?
I'm going to probably I'm going to probably glaze over these beads. But what you were talking about before is there's a little, oh no, you were talking about, sorry. There's a little bit of history there. I leave a little bit of history. You're going to see that they were there. Yeah, it's just part of it.
Yeah, they might be a shadow.
Yeah. But that adds to the piece.
Yeah.
It adds a depth that is really important. So like, it's got to do it.
You mentioned that you love expressing this idea of like what being human feels like in your work. And I wanted to ask you, what have you learned through creating your pieces about being human?
I think there's so many like different aspects to what I'm thinking about right now. Like, I think I look at some of the earlier works and I'm like, I know more now. Like, I'm like, you don't need to worry. And I look at the newer works and I'm like, you know, yeah, you're feeling a little confident. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
No, yeah, just what you've discovered about yourself through your work.
Well, you know, all right. So in more general terms, not about the work, but about myself, is that I'm really committed to what I do. I love what I do. I love what I do. It's not a job. It's like, actually, if you really knew me, you would know that if I don't work for a few days, you don't want to be around me. I'm really grumpy. I have to work. It's just what I do, and so I just find some people say, "Oh, I know." This is a conversation that my husband and I have. Well, it's a debate that we have. He says that he has a lot of fun in the studio.
You said what?
He says he has fun in the studio. Like, who has fun in the studio?
You said before that you have fun
I
in the
did.
studio.
I did. See, I'm a walking contradiction. But no, I find, you know what it is? Maybe I should have used the word joy. I find a lot of joy in what I'm doing. But
Okay.
like, for me, fun is like funny, haha. Like, no, it's like fun is going on a roller coaster and screaming as loud as you can. Like, that's fun.
I think fun and pleasure are two different things. In a studio experience where you can find pleasure, that I think it's next level to fun. there's a kind of a deeper kind of reward of that kind of pleasure that isn't about like the roller coaster.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot about satisfaction.
Yeah.
Like I'm really, really, really.
And affirmation.
Yeah, yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You talked a bit about failure in your work, and I was just curious, like, say you go through the process of creating this piece, and maybe you get a little attached, maybe you don't because you kill your babies.
Mhm.
But what do you do, like, say if you throw a piece in the bisque and it breaks, like, do you remake it or do you just trash it and completely
Trash
move
it.
on?
It's over. Yeah, no, it's over. And usually things don't break in the kiln. They break when I'm making them, and then I can like last summer, I'm carving the works almost paper thin in some areas, and I would break them all the time. And I don't get upset anymore. I start laughing because what can you do? I break my work all the time, but I have to repair them, and the repairs take a very long time. But that's kind of the love and tenderness. Like if I see that I really am attached to something, I want to make it happen. So they don't break in the kiln. It's part of my it's part of my process. It's a new like I don't want to say technique, or it's part of pushing it further. It's part of like trying to go further with my work is to push them to their limits, and then I learned their limit, and now I have to step back and repair it. No, I recently went through my studio, and I've been looking at pieces that have been hanging out for a few years, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll go back and finish that. You know what I did? Bam, 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 smashed them on the ground. It was great. Yeah. Yeah, it's really like, it's New York real estate. Like I don't have that much space. I got to get rid of them. They were losers. They were total losers. Yeah.
Charge them rent.
Yeah.
Were they already fired or were they?
They were already fired. They had necklaces on them. They were fired. They were like, yeah. But the other thing is like, I don't want, I don't want to. I lost them. Like, you're allowed to lose. They were losers, and I don't want them. Yeah. Yeah.
You're making towards monochromatic forms, and I'm curious, like, what other things are influencing that shift outside of the kind of lived experience that you discussed, and some of like the things you're witnessing day to day in Maine, like media or artists that are kind of influencing that maybe.
There's an amazing Anne Truitt show in New York City right now where it's the works on paper they're so subtle, and you don't they're squares, and you don't if you walk. This is the reward of giving something time. You think they're one color when you first see them, but the longer you stare at them, and if you go back multiple times to the gallery on different days, like I did, you see that there's patterns, so subtle. It's this seemingly simplistic square that has a lot of feeling to it. Like who knew? She makes a square feel. And another person who makes a square feel is Mondrian.
Nothing.
Yeah. Oh my God, that painting at the Broadway Boogie Woogie at the Met. Like, I think we're so. I mean, there's socks, there's purses, there's dresses with Broadway Boogie Woogie prints on it. So we're so used to it that we don't realize. Well, I didn't realize when. You go to MoMA and you look at it, it is one of the most passionate paintings. And I mean, I would go and I would stare for like 20 minutes. I think the guards get really nervous when I'm looking at it. But it's so, like, I look at the weight of his brush and the direction that he went with each stroke, and they were so considered. And then you look at how he tenderly like painted that little box, like he just like George Orr, like he was thinking, and it was so full of love and passionate. Like that's how I feel from it. So these are some influences. oh my God, now I'm forgetting. Where's my cheat sheet? My cheat sheet is, it's very large. Oh, why am I forgetting
Well,
this?
monochromatic is such a big leap. I mean, because these are so, dozens and dozens of color shifts from top to bottom, left to right.
Yeah.
So monochromatic does seem really hard to imagine. And also, like you mentioned too, Elena, about like the all white pieces, for example, that's hard to imagine as well.
An all white piece is, it's, when an all white piece, like how I'm developing it or thinking now, I'm really trying to make the forms complicated or interesting. And though they're, they're just from this this round form, um, but I'm so aware now that I'm working with the outline of the form, which is a graphic, three-dimensional line drawing in space, really. And then I'm dealing with the cutouts that I perhaps make in the form. That's another type of line. And then I'm dealing with shadow and then a light going on it. So they're a lot more complicated. So they're like, I think working like monochromatically there's a lot there that I'm really interested in. My person is Donald Judd.
Okay.
So the Donald Judd show at MoMA a few years ago, it was just amazing. It blew my mind, and they were like squares and rectangles, and it was just about a line, a color defining a space in the air, creating sculpture. I made Fred Sandback as another person who, Fred Sandback was a sculptor who created sculptures out of like colored line in a gallery or museum space that created a sculpture just made out of air because it was contained by the lines that he made in space. They're really mind-blowing. So these are like, there's a whole list I could go on, but these are artists who are helping me to understand how to look at form more, well, I want to say more simply, but simple is complicated, especially when you involve color. So, and the other thing about working monochromatically is just, especially with the glazes that I'm starting to work with, I'm after a certain color now. So I'm doing a lot of tests. Like there was a piece in my show at Cohan Gallery. It was called Tar. Or I think this is probably a really good way to possibly end this conversation. Is there was a piece that I made that was called Tar. So I made a form, and I absolutely loved the form. And it took me like a month to figure out what color I wanted on this form. And then I'm like, I need turmeric. So I just started pouring different colors and testing and made different versions of turmeric. And then I found one that was the right color, and I glazed the piece, and I loved it. But it was haunting me, and it's like, I'm not done yet, I'm not done. So I found the cube that it would go on. It was this very small cube, so there was this great scale relationship between enormous, even though it was only like 6 inches tall, and small but powerful. But the piece needed one more thing. And so it took me like, months, and my husband would come in and he's like, it's done. I'm like, no, it's not done. It needs one more thing. And then what I realized it needed was meaning. So it wasn't that I needed to add something, I needed to understand the piece. And I understood the piece when I realized the piece reminded me of undulating waves in a desert. And so I love Rajasthan in India, and I said, well, next time I go, I'm going to go to the desert that was in Rajasthan. What's the name of that desert? It's called Thar, Thar. And so once I realized that this piece was about a place I want to go because of the color, then it was done. I didn't need to add anything. I just needed meaning. So that ended that piece for me.
Interesting.
It's a good
Yeah.
spot to end.